The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, guys, welcome to Module 2 of our Publish My Bestseller program. And I'm going to go through several different things with you here today. We got a great module here planned for you. So to kind of start out, let me just, number one, make sure that I am recording, which I am. I've gone through a couple of these without pressing record. We don't want to do that. Let me talk just a little bit about what Module 2 is going to be about and the stuff that we're going to cover in this and the things that we're going to hit. So number one, we're going to focus on content creation. So this module is actually a module that we've added since last year, and I'm going to explain a little bit about that in just a second. But the whole focus is on content creation. So we're going to hit the preparation and research phase. I'm going to share a little bit with you, although there was some of that in Module 1 as well. Going to talk a little bit about developing your table of contents, and sounds simple, but you definitely want to make sure you do it right, and there are several different ways to do it. Number 3, we're going to talk about the hybrid ghostwriting program and how you can do this yourself. I'll also share with you a bunch of different tools that we use and some tools that you can use to really make it easy. And then the whole edit and refining options and how you do that. So in Module 1, just as a brief recap, we covered the planning phase. We covered creating your audience avatar, specifically doing that with your author market questionnaire so you can dive deep into the fears and worries of your ideal market, as well as the aspirations and desires of your market, specifically your audience who's interested or potentially could be interested in your book or your services. And then also we talked about, of course, all of that culminating with you creating your hook and creating your title. So at this step, you have that created. And perhaps you're even further down the line, but you want to go back and maybe you want to do some refining, or maybe you have some additional content to create. So if you've been through or jumped ahead to some of the other modules, let me just really quickly explain a couple of things. So let me go to our members area. So as you can see, we have welcome, and then of course modules 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. As I said, we actually added the content creation module afterwards. So what you're going to see is module 3, the video itself actually calls it module 2, but don't worry about that. It is on book publishing, and as you can see, we have a ton of content from formatting your book, setting up the free promotion, and then all of the resources that you'll need for it. And then module 4 will actually say module 3, and module 5 will actually say module 4. Just please notate that it's because we added this content creation module afterwards, but nothing is wrong. Module 3, this is module 3, even though it listed as module 2, and so on down the line. So just wanted to give a brief explanation of that. No one has actually even mentioned it, which is kind of funny. I don't know if that means that you kind of figured it out on your own or not, but let me just make sure that it is crystal clear. So this is a really important module. That's why we added it. It obviously can make or break your book, and oftentimes, if it's not done properly, you may never even finish your book. So let's hit the whys first as far as content creation. There are 3 big potential problems that you'll run into if you don't do this part of your book well, and if you don't create the content in really an excellent fashion. So problem number 1 is the book won't be in your voice. I've talked about this, and perhaps you've heard me share these different things on my webinars, but I hear it on a regular basis from people who have worked with traditional ghostwriting in the past. With traditional ghostwriting, basically what you're doing is you are furnishing, typically, a ghostwriter your table of contents, which you've developed on your own, oftentimes without any help from the ghostwriter themselves. And then the ghostwriter is going to take that material, do a little bit of research, and then have a series of Q&A calls with you. Those Q&A calls end up getting a lot of material out of you. But unfortunately, what happens very often, even with very expensive ghostwriting, is your voice can very easily get lost. Your stories become more gray and less colorful, and it becomes a matter of content that's all statistic based rather than story and gripping and emotion. And this is what happened with me, and it's really one of the reasons that we've developed the hybrid ghostwriting model, because what it does is it really captures your voice. So if you don't do that, and you do kind of a more traditional way, then you really risk losing your voice in the process. Number two, big potential problem is if you don't do these things as we discuss it, then your work may not really flow well. And oftentimes you see this in books where it seems to jump from, one story to the next or one idea to the next without really bringing things to a great conclusion and explanation and have a wonderful flow from chapter to chapter. So we're going to talk a lot about developing your table of contents, and I'm going to give you several different ways that you can do that. Not that one way is any righter or better than another, but it's just a matter of personal preference, and we'll share all of those so that you have an opportunity to let your work really flow in a beautiful, beautiful way. And probably the biggest potential issue, if you don't do this correctly, is you may never finish. I talk to authors, as you know, every single week, and I talk to people who have sometimes hundreds and hundreds of pages. I received an email about a week ago from a lady that told me she had over 1,000 pages of her story and the things that she wants to teach, and she's been compiling this for 15 years. 1,000 pages, and yet there is no book, there is no flow. It's still incomplete. It's because it wasn't built on a strong foundation in the beginning. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff there, 1,000 pages of stuff. But at the moment, that's not doing her any good, nor is that doing anyone else any good. So if you don't do these things right from the beginning in creating your content, then those are the three big problems that you potentially will have, and we don't want to have an incomplete work. We want to have a complete work, something that you'll be really proud of, and something that will make a huge difference not only in your life, but maybe in the lives of thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So we're going to start first and foremost with the research phase. And where do we go to do all of our research? But of course, we start with Amazon.com. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give some examples of how we might research a topic that we're going to be writing on. But before I even dive into Amazon and talk a little bit about that, let me just give a little caveat. The idea of the research phase is not to make up for any shortcomings that you as an author may have in your field of expertise. Really, the kind of unstated principle here is that you're already an expert on your topic. You're already an expert in this field that you're going to be writing about. And so we're not looking to plagiarize somebody else's work, nor are we looking to, steal their great ideas and put our name on it. Obviously, we're not going to do that. We can't get ahead, nor, ethically would we want to get ahead by doing that. Now, by the same token, in some ways, there are no tremendously new ideas. Oftentimes, we build our ideas and our concepts on the shoulders of people who have come before us. So we can learn, and certainly we can see how something is successful and how perhaps a topic that we're already an expert in can be built in such a manner so that the most people possible will be interested in it. And that's what we're trying to do, trying to take our expertise. We're trying to learn from what others have done correctly, learn from what others have done incorrectly so that we can avoid that and make our content and our book as appealing as possible. So let's jump right into Amazon first, and we'll talk a little bit about research. So I picked a generic topic. I thought let's do research like we were going to write kind of a general business book. Now, I wouldn't suggest any of my authors do this. So in one sense, I'm going outside what I would suggest. We always want to, as we talked about in creating your hook and your audience avatar, we always want to niche it down as much as possible. Okay, so let's see. I don't know if we have a question there. You are supposed to be seeing my screen. Good thing I am recording this. Uh, okay, sorry about that, Vlad. I guess I should have asked. I am recording it, so don't worry about it. Everything should be seen really clearly, okay? And if not, then I'm just going to have to go back through and do it all over again. It's just the beginning. But here we go. So we're jumping into Amazon, and this is our Amazon research page. I simply typed in building a business because I want to see what comes up when I do some research into writing a business book or writing a business book about building a business. So the first thing that we can see is obviously we have some that are more successful than others. You know, here's 59 reviews. That's pretty doggone good. 12, not so good. 520, we're going to come back to that one. The hard thing about hard things, 520, and it being a bestseller, that this book has sold tens of thousands of times. You can see, you know, all of these have done pretty well. These are pretty low, obviously. 2 reviews, 9 reviews, 13 reviews, 6, 2. Okay, so let's start first in our research in this particular topic, and let's hit this book first and foremost, The Hard Thing About Hard Things. And what we want to do first is we want to dive right into the table of contents so we can see how the content was formulated. We want to see how many chapters there are so that we can figure out a flow for ourselves. And we want to see what the flow is and also what we can learn from a creative standpoint of what may have made this book more successful than some of the other ones. So, Chapter 1, you can see we have an introduction from communist to venture capitalist. Chapter 2, survival. Chapter 3, this time with feeling. And then it gets into maybe some more of the meat of the content when things fall apart. And, of course, the subheads there, taking care of people, their products, and the profits in that order. Good stuff. And then concerning the going concern, how to lead even when you don't know where you're going. First rule of entrepreneurship, there are no rules. And then the end of the beginning, chapter 9. So this book has 9 chapters, which actually is a really good sized book. You don't need to write a book with 18 or 20 chapters. You know, great books can very easily be an introduction, 7 chapters, and a conclusion. So a couple of things that we can learn from this right off the bat. And we're going to talk in the table of contents section. I'm going to talk a little bit about creating your table of contents, and I'll even use this as a specific example for us. But I won't hit that yet. I'm just going to focus a little bit about what we learned from this. So first thing we learn, look how creative these chapter titles are, from communist to venture capitalist. Obviously, what Ben Horowitz is doing is he is doing nothing more really than sharing his personal story in the book. However, it's not so much about just, hey, here's where I came from and here's my roots. It's, wow, we can see that he went from, you know, maybe a communist beginning all the way to venture capitalist, a story of survival. This is interesting. So even though this is a business book about building a business, and that's how it popped up, we have a great deal of creativity used in his chapter titles. So it hooks us. It gets us interested. We want to know, how did he go from communist all the way to venture capitalist? There's an interest factor there beyond just the nuts and bolts of building your business. So there are several things that we learn here. And remember, if we were writing a business book or a book about growing your business, we can see some of the things that at least Ben thought were important in regards to this topic. Number one, his story is important. Now, that is always going to be true. Your story is important to what you're teaching on. However, the way he put it out, really, really well done. You can see he has a flow here, the struggle. CEOs should tell it like it is, the right way to lay people off, preparing to fire an executive, demoting a loyal friend. There's a lot in there. taking care of people, the products, and profits in that order. So we see, at least from Ben's perspective, what is important in growing a business. So a little bit that we can learn from that in regards to our topic. So let's take a minute and now let's go back to where we just were into Amazon. And let's see what maybe another one of these books that wasn't as successful as the Horowitz book. So building a business of your own, obviously, very similar topic. Building a business when there are no easy answers, building a business on your own. So let's take a look here. This book has not done as well. Why hasn't it done as well? Let's learn from both the positives and the negatives. So here we go. Here's your table of contents in this book. We have an introduction. What is the introduction about? I don't know. More than likely, it's the author's story, but we only see introduction. Okay. Traits for success, choosing the right niche, business planning basics, elements of a business plan. These are all good topics to cover. Starting the business, choosing a business structure, licenses and legal considerations. In some ways, what we're reading here may be even more of the nuts and bolts than what we read about in Ben Horowitz's table of contents. Well, what's the difference? Well, besides the fact that Ben Horowitz is a bestseller and he's sold tens of thousands of copies, think of the creativity of that book. I mean, this book, from a content standpoint, may be as good, but you know what? These chapter titles are terribly boring. Introduction, traits for success, choosing the right niche. You see, if you're going to take the time to write your life's work and something that you're a great success at, spend a little bit extra time. Come up with some creativity when it comes to your chapter titles. Throw your story in there. Throw your spice in there. So, we can certainly learn some things from this. And as I said, this may be just as good as Ben Horowitz's book. But the reality is, most people will never find out, because this book's only been reviewed a few times and it's only been purchased a few times compared to Ben's. And that's, at least from what we can initially see without buying both of these books and really looking at the quality, initially we can see, if someone dives in the table of contents, there's really nothing motivating here for somebody to really take the next step and read this book. Now, I said before, and it's at least worth mentioning again, books are purchased on covers and titles. And you can see this is the cover that we're dealing with building a business of your own. It looks homemade. It looks like something that probably a lot of money wasn't spent for. The hard thing about hard things, again, edgy, different, interesting. Look at the powerful colors that pop. You can really see what this book is about and the title of it. These might sound like small things, but as I've said before, if they're purchased on covers and titles, make sure that you don't skimp in those areas. Really spend the time that you need to come up with the right hook, the right title, and really spend the money necessary to get a great cover. And this cover is an excellent cover. Even though it's simple, it is an excellent cover that really stands out. So, we've looked at two books on building your business. Regarding the quality of each, I haven't read either one of them, so I don't know if one is better than the other. I think our assumption, though, is that Ben Horowitz's book is better for two reasons. Number one, it's sold tens of thousands of times. We like the cover better. And when we look in the book, we can see that he's put his heart and soul and creativity in it. This looks like it was done probably in short order. Not much money spent on the cover. The title, again, bland, and the table of contents bland. So the things that we can learn right off aren't just what we want to have as topics, but it might be things that will get your creative juices going when it comes to putting together your chapter titles, putting together the flow of your chapters and your table of contents. Okay? So the research phase, again, as I said a moment ago, the research phase is not primarily, nor is it ever or should it be, about plagiarizing somebody else's work. It's to get your creative juices flowing and help you to come up with your expertise to be communicated in such a way that it jumps off the page to your ideal audience passionately, powerfully. Okay, so let's jump back in to our presentation and talk specifically now about developing your table of contents. The big three up there is simply my way of saying that there are three primary ways for you to lay out your table of contents. Okay, so and there's probably many other ways. These are three that that I've come up with that and again, standing on the shoulders of others ahead of me. It's what we use for our authors every day in helping them create table of contents that have a great flow, even sometimes when there is not a natural flow to the work. So let's talk about what these three things are. So number one is the simplest. I call it the logical order of progression. Okay, the logical order of progression. Going back to Amazon for a second and using Ben Horowitz's book as an example, we can see that there is a logical order of progression to Ben's book. He starts with his story from the lowly beginnings of communism all the way to his growth to become a venture capitalist. It continues with survival and the challenges that he faced, the struggle, and then he progresses with what he feels are the most important things that should be hit in building a business. There is a logical progression. We're doing this, step one, we're doing this, step two, here's where I came from, and then I got to here, and then I got to here, all the way up to his conclusion. Now, this is a decent example, but there are probably much better examples. In fact, even the book that we just came from, the one that we didn't like very much, is probably an even better example of a logical progression. However, because the book isn't very successful, we don't want to use it as a great example, but you can see introduction, traits for success, then you're going to choose the right niche, then you're going to begin your business planning, then your elements of a business plan, then starting the business, then business structure, etc., etc. So in the same regards, just a simple logical order of progression. This is what you do first, this is what you do second, this is what you do third. Just make sure that it is creative and it is attractive, again, to your ideal audience. There's nothing boring about there being a logical progression unless you make it boring, unless you're not creative in the titles and in your use of story. So that's number one, the logical order of progression, and that's really the simplest. Next from there is what I call the segmented or segmentation by content, and that's a lovely little segmented centipede. So segmented by content, best way to think of that is one of the best business books of all time, and that's The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. Or highly effective people. Stephen Covey. So table of contents here, you can see that it's segmented. It's segmented into 4 parts, okay? So it's a little bit different. There isn't necessarily a logical progression or a logical order of do this first, do this second, do this third, etc. Why is that? Well, because what Mr. Covey had to explain was that you have these 7 particular habits. Some habits you may be good at, some habits you may not be, but one habit doesn't necessarily build directly upon another habit. They can be mutually exclusive from one another. So he has 4 parts that are segmented, each of these segmented by the content. So in part number 1, you have chapters on paradigms and principles. He's laying the foundation there for the rest of the book. He talks about inside out, and he talks about an overview of the 7 habits. So that is his introduction. That is his foundation to everything he is going to share. And then part 2 and part 3 are habits 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, and 6, and part 4, habit number 7. So part 2, again, private victory. So he has these 3 habits segmented in the content or in the underlying uh, uh, chapter heading or section heading of private victory. So, habit number 1 being proactive, principles of personal vision. Habit 2, beginning with the end in mind, principles of personal leadership. Habit 3, put first things first, principles of personal management. So these are all principles, and again, it has to do with private victory. So it's segmented into section number 2 based on what he felt the 3 habits that most were similar in regards to private victory. Section number 3, or part number 3, was about public victory. Again, think win-win. Habit 5, seek first to understand. Habit 6, synergize. And then part 4 is on renewal, and that's habit number 7 of sharpening the sword and then going back to inside out. You can see there are basically 7 chapters, but they're segmented into these 4 different sections. One doesn't necessarily build on the other, although there is some of that there. However, it's not a logical order of progression, as we just said. So you may have, you may be, writing a book that has, these principles within it that don't necessarily build on one another. These are standalone principles. However, you may find that of these standalone principles, there are some that deal with content that can all be lumped together in one section, others that deal with content that can be lumped together in a different section. So what you create is a really nice flow of your table of contents, just like Stephen Covey did with his flow of introduction, private victory, public victory, and then renewal. Okay, so that is your second way that you can create your table of contents, which is again segmenting by content itself. Okay, so back here to the last one. The last one is what I call the non-sequential questioning. And non-sequential questioning, as far as developing your table of contents, is really when you have a book that perhaps answers questions or deals with principles or challenges that somebody is facing that doesn't have any natural sequence, but you want to address these questions in whatever sequence you choose without parts or sections because they can't be all lumped together. So let's go back again to Amazon, and I'll show you an example of how this worked. We helped an author write his book, Robert Zentis, called Unlimited Possibilities. Robert's book did very well, 32 5-star reviews. You can see was a number 1 bestseller, and he's done really, really well with it. His book is Unlimited Possibilities: Forever Change Your Destructive Beliefs to Break Free from Your Past and Live the Life of Your Dreams. So Robert, in his book, has an introduction, 10 chapters, and then acknowledgments and about the author. And what Robert did is, in a similar way, when we developed this book, because we helped him from scratch with this book, what Robert did is he lays the foundation in the beginning. So chapter 1, our mind and our beliefs, limiting belief fundamentals. So the fundamentals, first and foremost, that's his introduction, right after his introduction, and again, him building the foundation. And then again, going further on that, why we block out the good, not feeling deserving or worthy. Now he's jumping into what Robert would have considered the 7, big limiting beliefs that people have, and I guess there are more than 7. I can't remember exactly offhand, but the several might be 7 or 8. Major limiting beliefs that people have in no particular order. So he focuses first on not feeling deserving or worthy, then the scarcity mindset, chapter 3, chapter 4, I am alone, the fear of being alone, chapter 5, secrets to lasting self-esteem, chapter 6, power and strength, chapter 7, stuck in our deepest fears, etc. So there is no sequence necessarily to Robert's book, meaning that it doesn't necessarily build from one chapter to the next. But there are these limiting beliefs, each of them as a standalone limiting belief, without sequence, without sectioning or parts, and he's dealing with each one of these questions one by one. Of course, he has to first build the foundation for that, and then he has a conclusion with techniques and positive learnings, and of course, the ultimate conclusion, which we have in chapter 10 with acknowledgments and about the author. So again, this is your what we call your non-sequential questioning as far as developing your table of contents. Now, just to be clear, look, there's no right or wrong way to do it. You don't have to think just in terms of doing it one of these ways. You can perhaps create a hybrid of these. What I want you to see is that I don't want you to be stuck in this kind of boring mindset of, the only way to create a table of contents is to flow from one part of your story to the next part. First we go here in step 1, and then we go here in step 2, and then we go here in step 3. That is certainly one way of doing it, the logical order of progression. But there are other ways to do it that can add some flair and some creativity to your story and to your expertise. So don't be afraid to mix things up, make them different. You can still make it different and give it a great flow from one chapter to the next. Okay? One chapter to the next. So, by the way, if you guys have any questions, feel free to jump in at any time and type them in, and I'll do my best to answer them. I will leave a moment or two for some Q&A at the end as well. But let's go from here. Okay, we're building out our book. So, we started in Module 1 with creating our audience avatar, with crafting our hook. We then go from there to doing our research and creating our table of contents. From there, we're going to think in terms of creating the content itself, and that is the hybrid ghostwriting program. It's kind of the meat of things, and I want to share with you exactly what we do within the hybrid ghostwriting process so that you guys can imitate it and you can do this yourself. And then I'll give you guys some tools, and we'll open it up to any questions, and we'll be done. So the hybrid ghostwriting process, guys, for lack of a better way to put it, is you speaking your book, but in a presentation manner, okay? A presentation manner. So here's the simple explanation that we give to our authors when it comes time to start their hybrid ghostwriting process. I tell my authors, and I'm going to break this down for you in a couple of steps in just a second, but we tell our authors, look, what we want to do is in every chapter, we want you to come to the chapter recording as though you're going to be giving a 20 to 25 minute presentation to a group of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 of your ideal clients, your ideal audience. And if you were to give a presentation to 10 or 100 of your ideal clients, there are certain elements of your presentation that you want to really be clear on. So number one, if you're going to be speaking and presenting on chapter 1, then what we want you to do is we want you to come to your hybrid ghostwriting content creation for chapter 1 meeting with a 3 or 4 point lesson. The 3 or 4 points are the 3 or 4 major things that you want to hit in that particular chapter. You want to come with 1 or 2 stories to both hook your audience initially and also to illustrate the points that you're making about the primary specifics of this chapter content. And then last but not least, we want you to kind of end with a bang so that it's memorable. And perhaps you have a quote, or perhaps you, just as you were ending a presentation with, doing a speaking engagement for 10 or 100 people, you want to end, powerfully. Now I want to break this down for you, but I want to give you just that kind of brief overview. What makes the hybrid ghostwriting process really simple and easy, if you have the pieces in place, is the fact that it is your voice, it's your passion, it's your particular content presented with your stories and your examples that make it alive and exciting. It's not just facts and statistics. It's you that make it really interesting. So there are 3 kind of key elements with the hybrid ghostwriting process. And element number one is you want to start with story. So if you're going to be speaking for, say, 20 minutes, and by the way, that's a pretty good amount of time. Let's say that you wrote a book that's an introduction, 7 or 8 chapters, and a conclusion. So we're talking about 10 chapters or so. If you speak for 20 minutes, 25 at the outside, even 15 to 20 is fine, and you do that for each particular chapter, then you're gonna have enough content for a really nice 125 to 175 page book. So just think in terms of that 20-25 minute presentation with your best stuff in it. So how is it going to start? Well, just like any good presentation, you want to hook your audience right out of the gate in your particular chapter. So if they're reading that chapter, what is going to be more interesting to them? Something that is story based with ups and downs and challenges and pitfalls and overcoming adversity, and here's how I failed and then succeeded, or just kind of dry statistics about, well, here's what you need to do in chapter 1. You need to learn this and learn this and do. It's the story that grips people. Now, it can't just be story, but you want to start with story in every particular chapter. Now, this slide says, what's your story? But it doesn't necessarily have to have every chapter starting with your story. These can be stories from history. They can be stories from sports. They can be great analogies. Anything that you come across that is gripping and leads into the content that you want to share. But a great way to grip the audience right from the very beginning is story. Okay, so that's the first part of your chapter content creation in your hybrid ghostwriting process. The second part is having a great structure. So it's not enough just to start with a great story. You want to start with a great story that then bleeds perfectly into the point that you want to make about that chapter's content. Just like the very first book that we researched today, The Hard Thing About Hard Things, that very first kind of introductory chapter about, from communist to venture capitalist. I mean, right from the get-go, it's only a few words, but you get it. You and I immediately, have images in our mind of communism and the fall of communism, and we think oftentimes of the poverty of communism. And then we think of a venture capitalist, and we think, wow, I mean, I want to know what this story is. So right out of the gate, we have, the structure of great story that leads to the point that this individual is trying to make. So you want to have great structure, great story that leads into your point number 1, your point number 2, your point number 3, and you want to have case studies and examples within that brings those specific points to light as well. Okay, so next and last is you want to end strong. Remember, every chapter is, kind of a microcosm of your whole book. Every chapter has to hook them and interest them and give them great content and information. And then it has to end with something that is memorable and strong. So how do you do that? Well, a couple of ways you can do that. Obviously, you can do that with story again. You can do that by kind of reiterating some of the main points that you've already hit in the stories, maybe that led into this particular chapter. A great quote is a cool way to end. Again, think in terms of a speaking engagement. If you were standing up in front of an audience of individuals and you ended with a powerful quote from a famous person from history or sports, or perhaps a great quote from somebody that you helped in their life to overcome adversity, or that you helped to grow their business or achieve some level of success. So again, the 3 parts are very simple, but they're very important. And when you do this right for each chapter, it becomes very simple to create a presentation that's just 20 or 25 minutes long, that has all of the nuts and bolts and particulars of a chapter, but more than that, it's interesting because you start with story, you continue with great structure, and then you end with something strong, like a great quote or something really powerful. Okay? So your hybrid ghostwriting process is really simple. I'm going to give you some tools and share with you the ways that we've done it and the ways that you guys can do it so the content kind of flows simply. But most important is that you present in the manner that I just shared and keep it to that 20-25 minute mark. You don't need any more than that to create really, really great content. So let's talk for a minute about different tools that you guys can use, and some of these may be familiar and others of them may not be, so I just want to go over all of them. Dragon, naturally speaking, is a simple software program, and in fact, I think I have a new Mac. I think the new Macs come with kind of a translation type software like Dragon, where you just speak and it translates it right onto a Word document, so that you can not need any type of transcriptionist. And Vlad's saying that his Mac has a software too. Yeah, I haven't tried it, but I'm pretty sure that all new Macs have that. If you don't have a new Mac, then you can buy Dragon, naturally speaking. It's not too expensive. I think it might be a couple of $100, but it's certainly worth it if you want to do this yourself in this kind of model. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of other ways that you can do it without spending money for the software, but you'll still have to spend money to get everything transcribed. So Dragon is a great software. We actually don't use Dragon. What we do is, because remember, the way our model works is we have an actual ghostwriter on the line with our clients that listens to them do the presentation, asks them some additional questions, and then gets to know that author over a period of several months so that the voice can really be captured. So a couple things in that regard. We use like freeconferencecall.com. It's free to sign up for. Really, really easy to use. You can just sign up and get a free number so that you can go on there with another person, and you can do a recording session if you like. You just press *9 in the code and you can record that. We record every single session with our authors this way. And then we have it transcribed using rev.com, rev.com. Rev.com is the best we found. We had all kinds of individual transcriptions. We've tried everything, and we haven't found anything that is as inexpensive and efficient and proficient as rev.com. So if you have something better, that's great, but I can tell you, we transcribe thousands and thousands and thousands of pages, and Rev is the best for us. You can see it's about $1 per minute. So you can, plan on spending about, $20-$25 to get, your entire chapter transcribed. And of course, that's just the raw data, but it's, a very, very, very good kind of start. Now, something to at least consider, and if you have the ability to do this, it could really enhance your work. As I said, we use freeconferencecall.com. We don't use Dragon, naturally speaking, because our authors work hand in hand with a ghostwriter. If you have somebody else, you're doing this on your own, and you have somebody else that is willing to do these calls with you, to listen, to ask questions, maybe to give you some feedback on the calls, on these recordings, then you're really going to be able to create something powerful, because you'll have somebody that's there that if you stumble, they can maybe help you by digging deeper in the topic. Maybe they'll tell you, you know what, you did a good job, but you were redundant. You said this 3 or 4 times. And so you can go back to the transcript and then cut out some of that material, or they can let you know, that was really great, but I was also a little confused when you talked about this. So could you go a little bit deeper? That's what our ghostwriter does. But you don't necessarily need a quote unquote ghostwriter to do that. If you had somebody like a friend that knew you, knew the business, maybe knew a little bit about what you do, they could help you to dive deeper into your subject and really pull some great stuff out of you, even though you've put together the presentation with the stories and the examples and all of that as well. So just a thought there. If you can do that, that's really, really helpful. So once this is done, as far as the hybrid ghostwriting process, and obviously you can create your content as quickly as you can. What we recommend is scheduling an appointment once a week. That's what we do with our authors. If the average book is 9 chapters, and that means that we're going to have 9 recording sessions, the ghostwriter and the author, and in 9 weeks we're going to have all of the content done. Now that doesn't mean the book is done, but the basic content is done. Once that is complete, you then are going to have a choice to make. Now obviously, depending on your budget and depending on what you desire to do with your book, you can simply go in and begin the editing process and turning that content from a recorded presentation, a transcript, into a real book. And a lot needs to be done for that. You may have run-on sentences. You may not have great introductory sentences or conclusion sentences. You may not have good transition sentences. You may need bullet points put in. There may be just lots of little things that need to get done. Those are the things that a good ghostwriter can do for you. And if your voice has been, really captured using this process, then it becomes very simple. One of the things that you can do if you want to hire this out is use a website like elance.com. At Elance, you can see, 126,000 jobs posted in the last 30 days. 1.5, I guess that's billion earned through Elance to date. Elance is a great place to find programmers, mobile developers, designers. There you go, writers, marketers, etc. And we can do a quick little search in Elance. So let's say that you wanted to find somebody to help with content editing in Elance, content editing. So you could do a quick search for content editing, and which, by the way, if most of the people I deal with are in the first world, so I would certainly recommend that when it comes to ghostwriting, content editing, that sort of thing, that you're dealing with somebody, in the U.S. or in your home country, if you're in Canada or Australia or whatever. Yes, it'll be more expensive, but you want it done correctly. You want it done by somebody that is a professional and can do a good job for you. So you can see a couple of different things. One, you have Heather here, 79 jobs, almost a 5-star review. Here's someone with 379 jobs. Obviously, you want to pick somebody with a ton of experience that can help. Now, maybe they can't help in your particular topic, but what I want to give you is, if you want to do this on your own from start to finish, and yet you maybe don't want to do the editing process because you've looked at your work, 10 times in a row, and you no longer see the mistakes that are there, then at some point you're going to have to hire somebody outside to help. Now, on a case-by-case basis, we can help you with that as well. So certainly always feel free to call Rebecca in our office at 626-765-9750, and we can give you, typically a really affordable price for your editing and that sort of thing. However, if you're talking about content editing, just raw transcripts, that's considerably different than just grammatical editing. So know that there are different stages, different types of editing that you can do, and it's going to be more expensive from these various e-lancers or from us or whoever you use, depending on what it exactly is that you need. Okay, so again, pretty simple what we're talking about, the process. Step by step. Obviously, you're dealing with creating your hook and title, then creating your table of contents. Mix it up, be creative with it, and yet still make sure it has a great flow to it. Then you're going to start your hybrid ghostwriting process. Every chapter is like, your mini work of art. Every chapter, has to stand alone. It has to hook them with a great story. It's got to end with, a great moment or a great quote or a great reminder. And it has to have good structure in between. When you have that done and you've created your content, the next step, of course, is your editing, whether it's the bigger content editing / ghostwriting, or more of the grammatical stuff because you choose to content edit it yourself. Okay, so let's talk just for a second about homework. Homework is really simple. Start your hybrid ghostwriting process. Get to work on it. Talk to your project manager. Obviously, you have somebody that does this every single day in our company that will help you with brainstorming. Go on Amazon with you and do some research. Talk through maybe the best table of contents flow that will work for your book, because our staff has experience with hundreds of authors and hundreds of books. We're launching books every single week. So make good use of your project manager at this stage so that you can really have a good foundation for your work moving forward. Okay, so let's open it up. There are several of you. I haven't seen any questions, so I know it is. Let's see. There are a few questions here. Let's see. Actually, no questions there. Let me know if you have any specific questions about the content creation. Obviously, your project manager can also help with any specific questions you might have about your topic. But otherwise, any questions about the general process at all, I'll give you guys just a little bit of time. Pretty self-explanatory, and I tried to cover it in as much detail as possible. As I said, I've recorded everything, so this will be up in the members area in the next 24 to 48 hours, and we'll send out a notice when that is up as well. So give you guys a few more seconds here. If you have a question, go ahead and type it in. Talking about a book with 10 chapters, is this a hard and fast rule? I'm currently looking at more. No, it's not at all. In fact, my newest book, Sue, is going to have about 18 chapters. The reason I talk about 10 chapters, because I've said a number of different times that, if you want to keep your recording sessions to 20 or 25 minutes for your hybrid ghostwriting program, then that's going to create about 150, 175 page book if it's about 10 chapters. Now, if you have 18 chapters, then you're going to have, a choice to make. Either A, you can continue recording for 20 or 25 minutes and you're going to have a book that's maybe 300 pages long, or B, you could cut down on your recording time, which is what I've chosen to do. I like a book that's in the 150, 175 page range, like a Seth Godin book, maybe even a little larger. So that, to me, and from studies that have been on Amazon, is kind of the sweet spot. So for my book, that's 18 chapters. I'm recording about 10 or 15 minutes per chapter instead of 20 or 25 minutes for a 9 or 10 chapter book. So no hard and fast rule. You can make it as many chapters as you like. I've seen that there's a couple of really beautifully written books that are as many as 50 or 60 chapters, and every chapter is like 3 or 4 pages. Stephen Pressfield is an author that does that, and he does that in a beautifully flowing and creative way. So absolutely, you can do something just like that. Sue says that's pretty much what I'm looking at. There you go. Then yeah, totally fine to do that. Sorry if I wasn't clear on that before. So you're okay with as many chapters as you like. Just consider how long you want those chapters to be. Okay, guys. Any other questions that you may have? Go ahead and jump in with any questions. I'll leave this up for a few more minutes, and let me know. Otherwise, again, you are certainly welcome to watch this module and go back through it as many times as you like, and you can go through it with your project manager as well. So doesn't look like there's anything else. We've been going a little short of an hour, which is about where I like to keep these modules. So hopefully that was really helpful to you. If you have any questions, then don't be afraid to talk to your project manager about that. And certainly if there's anything else that we feel like is missing from this module, then we'll add additional videos as well that will help to answer questions down the road. So thanks so much. Great being on with you guys today. And if there's nothing else, then I am going to sign off and go create that content. Good luck, guys, and congratulations again on taking the steps in these modules. Talk to you soon.